It's always good to kind of start with the basic fundamentals of kind of getting to know your body. And then from there, you start to kind of build strength. For a beginner performer, is when you start to kind of introduce a little bit more body. For the programs that I've worked with, usually you will always start with at least 1 hour in the beginning of rehearsal of just dance and warming up your body.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Beyond the Steps, produced by Apollo Performance and Turning Point Dance Creations. I'm Bree Zabrowski with Melissa McDaniel Grisham, and we've got another really, really great conversation lined up. We're talking about building a foundation and progressing through Colorguard. And Colorguard is one of those worlds that there's a lot of layers there, and once you dive in, there is so much to know and understand. I call them artistic athletes because that's exactly what they are. They're just doing incredible things with their bodies. So I'm excited to tell you who we've got back with us today. We've got Michael Rosales. He's one of the most sought after choreographers in the country. He has danced for many recording artists, toured with the Tonys, Emmy Award winning show Blast, appeared in blockbuster movie Rent. Michael's one of the co-founders of TAE Talent Agency and is the creative director of the Breakdown Camp, which focuses on teaching movement and fundamentals for marching musicians. Michael, welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to, sit down and chat with you guys.
You always have so much like great insight because you're like boots on the ground. You see it all. So we're excited to dive in with you.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I want to jump right in because we have a lot to cover. Many performers and instructors are often searching for ways to accelerate skills in their development. They want, we're in an instant gratification society today. Like, how can I get there faster? In your experience, what are the foundational elements when truly mastered allow performers to advance as quickly as possible?
We see this in all areas, right? From dance to color guard. People want to get to the big flashy things. And it's just more important than ever to, again, we'll all say it from the rooftop, basic fundamentals. Check your technique. Spend time going over your technique, especially when you're talking about color guard, where it's all about preciseness and your touch and your release. Like you always need to know where your release is when you're tossing a 5 rotation or a 6 rotation before you do the turn underneath or the slide underneath or all the cartwheel or the flip underneath. So you have to kind of trust your foundation first so you can successfully do some of these big skills, especially in color guard. So
Michael, what kind of movement would you encourage the color guard athletes to train in, right? Is it ballet? Is it jazz? Is it a little bit of both? Like what kind of movement would you encourage them to work for?
I think just in general, basic fundamentals of ballet is a good starting point, because it allows them to be familiar with their bodies, their posture, their lines. So those are always a good places to start. And then from there, just all depends on stylistic choices of the choreographer and the program and the direction of the show that you're going to want to kind of present the following season. But for the most part, we spend a lot of time on basic fundamentals of ballet. We introduce basic fundamentals of jazz, especially when we're doing stuff across the floor and we're traveling and we're starting to incorporate like leaps and jumps. So that becomes a little bit more on the jazz and the more advanced starts to get into more the contemporary stuff. And then when you start to do like more stylistic type of shows, then maybe we incorporate a little bit of hip hop or a little bit of Latin or it's all that.
Is there a focus more on the upper or lower half of the body, or would you say it's even? Like when you're judging and you're looking at color guard performances, are you looking at both? You're looking at the feet, you're looking at the hands, you're looking at the body, the carriage, the body placement.
Oh yeah, yeah. So in our world, there's a movement judge, and the movement judge kind of encompasses everything in going on in your body. And so they want you to be able to kind of incorporate your whole lower body when you're reaching over, when you're doing a full lunge, like how engaged is your whole body. So yeah, it's a full body.
Great. That's fantastic. So dance movement comes in really handy for those athletes. I want to talk about equipment work because As I said earlier, there's a lot of layers here, and one that adds a more complex layer is working with the equipment, particularly a flag, a rifle, saber. It can cause some hurdles for these artistic athletes. What are some of the most common technical challenges you see, and what are your go-to drills or approaches to help performers achieve greater control and fluidity, especially using those types of props or equipment?
I think especially with activity these days, movement and dance to me is high up on the list because if you don't are not familiar with how to use your body, it's going to be kind of hard to manipulate a piece of equipment. So it's always good to kind of start with the basic fundamentals of kind of getting to know your body, and then from there you start to kind of build strength. Like when you're starting on flag is where normally most beginners start, is learning to kind of build the muscles to kind of manipulate this in different ways. So they do different types of spins, they do some angle work, so a lot of wrist work is important to kind of gain that strength and that flexibility to be able to kind of do some of those moves. Carriage, a lot of like your biceps when you're catching that equipment is coming at you, from 30 feet in the air, coming down. You'll be able to have that strength in your biceps to be able to kind of manipulate that. Just being familiar with how to release this thing properly, so you're not throwing it across the field. So you start with smaller toss. Yeah, you start with smaller tosses, learning how to control that. Some basic fundamentals is like, just standing still with your feet in second position and seeing if you can toss straight up and if it'll come straight down. That's basic fundamentals.
Yeah, when you do the choreography, are you setting movement first and adding the equipment in later, or are you starting from jump with the equipment?
Oh, you're gonna start if you're writing equipment work, you want to start with the equipment. And then, as it depends on the, I guess, the level of your students, if they're in the more advanced space, then you really want to explore the body and make it feel like your equipment is part of your body and it's extension of your body.
This is one of those things that they make it look so easy, but I swear to God, like if you were to put me out there, like I can do this, and then I would get bonked in the head. I would be a hot mess. So I it is one of those things that they make it look so easy, but it's not at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're the pros. And when you talk about like, like the Paramounts and the Pride of Cincinnati, I mean, these kids, I mean, I say kids, but they're grown, they're matured performers, they're young adults. They're the pros. They're at the top of the game in this activity.
Yeah, it's really, really incredible to see, the work they put in the final product. So kudos to all of you for, the talent and the immense amount of time you put in.
So oddly enough, I have a very relevant story for this episode. So when I was in high school, we had dance team, which danced with the band. Well, one year the band director had the bright idea that he was going to make the dance team the flag line as well for the halftime show. We don't know anything about. I mean, come on, dude. Are you serious right now? So he was like, "Yeah, over the summer during band camp, you'll learn the flag routine." And we're like, "Whatever." Can I tell you how many times my lip was busted? How many times the flag, like you said, went flying over there and somebody's running across the field trying to pick up a flag that they that is not possible. Like, you cannot just take some people and go, "Hey, hold this flag," and go over there and do this. Like, that actually takes a lot of skill, and, like, to your point, Bree, making it look easy, like, I think he thought, "Oh, you know what? It looks easy. You just twirl the flag around and no.
Like, I really want to encourage people. Like, I wish I could go back to every game I've ever watched and been at and watch more closely the color guard and the winter guard and what they were doing, just because there's just so much skill required there, and again, it looks so easy, but it is not. They do an amazing job.
He only did that for 1 year. That was a 1 year. That was a one and done. Lesson learned, there.
But you know what? I hear that story way too often, especially like working around Texas and working with band directors. Band directors, sometimes there are not enough color guard instructors to go around, especially if you're in a more rural city, it's at least a good quality instructor. And so a lot of times these band directors are kind of throwing themselves out there, be like, all right, let's make something up.
Along that same line, it's not just about like spinning. It's not just about throwing. It's about the movement and equipment work together. So if you do have a situation, like you said, sometimes there's just not enough people to go around, not enough instructors to go around, or maybe not even the funds or resources to hire someone that's extremely professional. What are some of the key, what's the fundamental key principle to start with to seamlessly integrate body movement with equipment work and create a more impactful performance, especially if you can't get to those higher levels?
There's basic fundamentals in equipment work, like your basic spins on both directions, both arms, learning how to kind of work in the planes, different planes in your body. That's really, really important. And then once you kind of start to get an idea of how to control this thing for a beginner performer, is when you start to kind of introduce a little bit more body. Obviously carriage and knowing your positions and knowing how to shift your weight side to side, those are all really important. So I guess it just depends on where your program is. So if you're an instructor, like, take a look at where your kids are and meet them where they're at, meet them where their needs are, and kind of learn how to show them new skills as they mature. One of the issues I see is, a lot of directors or choreographers or instructors or coaches, they kind of just jump in. They have an idea of what they want to teach their kids, and they just teach it without really setting them up to succeed yet. Because again, we're all rushing to get to the next thing, not just performers, but also like instructors and coaches. They're rushing. Like, take your time and kind of like meet your students where they're at.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the professional, dance environment in LA or something. Like, you always see those teachers that like they've got like they've got like 15 counts of 8 that they've been working on, and they are going to get that 15 counts of 8 out, and it doesn't matter if everyone is lost, they are getting it out. And yeah, it's sometimes you just got to back up and like you're not going to get as far as you wanted, but it's more important that everybody gets it, right? To perform it. Yeah, that's a common issue. So, we see this a lot. I don't care if you're talking about, marching arts, dance, cheers, soccer. Athletes and performers hit plateaus in their progress, right? What are some of the mental and physical strategies you recommend to break through these barriers and how to continue to improve, especially when it relates to color guard?
Yeah, I think especially the world we live in today, we have access to so many things on our hands, on our phone, on our laptop. I think allowing yourself to kind of take time to sit back and see what else is going on out there is always a good way to kind of like, hey, let me see what else is going on. I know, even as a choreographer, like, we have these blocks, right? You're like, I'm in a block right now. Like, how do I re-inspire myself to kind of maybe think differently? And so I think just using our resources online is a good tool for that. Classes, I always tell people, hey, if you ever have a block, go take a class. And it might not be a class in your profession. It could be a pottery class. You're going to take something away when you come through a struggle or a hurdle, and you're going to realize, oh, this is how I got through it, or this is how someone else told me to get through it, and maybe find a way to kind of implement that in some of the things that you're going through at the moment.
I feel like to your point too, like doing something else that's outside of what your normal training schedule, doing something that's totally different, like pottery. It also kind of reminds you, maybe gives some perspective back about why you love doing the thing in the first place, which I think to your point, there is so much information available and there's so many different tools out there. It can be, just looking at my son and what he's going through with soccer, it can be very overwhelming. All the YouTube videos and all the Instagram, highlights and the tools and the training gear and this and that. Sometimes it's just about getting back to what you love and learning why you love to play the game and taking all the pressure off, right? Sometimes that'll do it too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me personally, music. If I listen to different genres of music, that makes me move differently. That all of a sudden I'm thinking from a different space. Now, if I just use a different form of music, a different genre of music to kind of start a phrase, I can come back to the music I'm supposed to be working on and be like, oh, I have a different perspective now. Let's try that.
Just taking the weight off yourself, and maybe drawing inspiration from somewhere outside of that. I think it's so important to find the fun in it again, when you're under that intense pressure and scrutiny.
Absolutely. And sometimes I think it's the other way around. I think sometimes these students, these younger ones, are bombarded, like you're saying, there's so much out there. And so they're constantly seeing other performers that are better than them. And so that puts this pressure on them. I'm like, why can't I be that good? Why can't I, do that trick or that skill? Or why can't I, So it's kind of like sometimes it's the other way, they're over.
Overstimulated, over overstressed.
Yeah, and then now they're talking themselves down. So it kind of goes the other way sometimes.
It's homework time, everyone. We give homework on this show every single week. We have our guests give our viewers some piece of homework that they can work on between now and the next episode. This homework we would love for be for performers and instructors that are striving to get to the next level. So, Michael, can you give us three pieces of advice that you would offer that can have the most significant impact on a journey for a color guard or winter guard professional?
I would encourage people to look at a different genre of music and or maybe a different style of movement than what you are normally familiar with, and kind of like see where that takes you. Allow yourself to go, let me just explore, let me mess up, let me create something good, you know. I would say technique, always come back. Always come back. Even for me, I kind of enjoy just being at the gym and all of a sudden like, maybe let me do some plies here, just kind of check my alignment and where everything is. And finding joy in technique. I think a lot of times we put so much emphasis on the show or the choreography or the big elaborate moment that we kind of take away. And I think as instructors and coaches, it's our job to introduce technique and make sure that it's still enjoyable for all these kids to go through. The last bit of homework is I would say, and this is something I have to work on, is a little bit more empathy on yourself, and on the people around you. We live in a crazy world where you really don't know what other people are going through, and so just remind yourself to have a little bit of empathy to yourself and to the people around you. So that's my homework.
This is a random question. I don't know. I'm just curious. When you're in color guard, do you guys have sessions where you're training just in movement and technique, or are they expected to sort of train in that way on their own outside of rehearsal and practice?
So for the programs that I've worked with, usually you will always start with at least 1 hour in the beginning of rehearsal of just dance and warming up your body and touching your technique and maybe doing some across the floors, and just all dance and all movement for at least an hour, maybe more, depends on your rehearsal time. And then from there, you'll get a little break, and then they'll switch over to equipment basics, which they'll stand in a block, in a file, and they will do their basic spins and kind of check their technique. These are all you usually want to incorporate this like during like summer camp season, before you have choreography for your show. So you want to take advantage of early season and doing these basics and getting them in a routine. And then from there, you start to kind of marry the worlds together.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've never asked that before, so I was just curious. But Michael gave so much great homework today. Three major things to think about, and we have the same homework each and every single week. It is to take the Free Steps Initiative course. Every module in this course was curated by experts in their field, and we're going to touch on things from racism and gender inequity to sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, and of course, medicine and science. It's a go at your own pace type of situation, so anyone can take it, from teachers and coaches to athletes and performers and even parents. We're going to give you evidence-based research and resources for you to dive deeper into these topics on your own, because when you know better, you do better. So click that link. And Michael, for everybody out there watching, I know you do a lot of different things. You travel all over the country and the world, doing choreography and working with these artistic athletes. How can people get in touch with you, consult with you, or book you? I know you're really busy and probably don't have that many openings, but anyway, just let the people know.
There's always space. I am on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. m.rosales007 is my Instagram handle. I also have a camp called the Breakdown Camp. You can find that on Instagram, Facebook, on TikTok, and it's a movement camp geared towards marching band members and musicians, because movement is everything right now. And I think people are realizing it's a great tool for all these young adults to kind of have in their back pocket.
Now for the breakdown camp, is that just in the summer? Is it one time or is it multiple locations?
We have multiple locations around the country. We have, I think, this summer 4 camps throughout Texas. We're going to be in Indianapolis this year. We're looking at Tennessee. We're looking at New Jersey. We're going to do one in California and possibly in Georgia.
So make sure you check out the Breakdown Camp. Check out Michael on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's m.rosales007. Yes, that's what it was. Just making sure I had it right. I actually did get it right. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us through this episode. We got some great information. I'm Melissa McDaniel Grisham here with Bree Zabrowski signing off. Thank you, Michael, so much again for chatting with us today. And thank you, everybody who's viewing, for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Steps. You can find this episode and all of our other episodes on YouTube and Facebook at Apollo Performance and at TP Dance Creations. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Next week, we're going to have a new episode with Kara Dixon from Relative Motion Experience.